All right, well, still haven't gotten over the Leaf game, but I'm going to change the video up a little bit, change it to a subject a little bit different, darts. Anyone that follows my channel knows that I follow darts, I watch darts, I really enjoy. And what I've done over the last year and a bit is really collected stats. It's been really great what's happened over darts in the last 3 or 4 years. Websites like Darts Connect, Live Data, you're able to get dart stats. And really, this started out with me. I'm a stats guy. I like numbers. I like doing analytics, but I'm not going to lie to you. I was trying to see what I could do to figure out how I could make some money on bets and what is a good predictor of a matchup, who's in good form, and what do I expect in a longer type game. It's really tough to do the bets on the games that are best of 11 because they can go either way based on a mistake, but longer game formats, taking a look at it. So what I've done is compiled all the stats that I can. This is the way that the stats work. I've collected every single game that's played since the Masters right up until the Gibraltar Darts tournament was the last tournament last weekend. I've got all those stats. I did not include the World Cup because that's doubles format. It's tough to be able to generate 180 per leg when you got a partner that fires right behind you, so you only get so many opportunities for that. And the other one to take a look at as well, the Grand Prix. The Grand Prix is a little different. I treat it with a little bit different because you basically lose one shot of getting a high score, in my opinion, because you have to double in. You can still get a 160 double in, and that's a 140 score, but you lost the opportunity for a 180. So I just treated it that way in terms of 180s and judging it by legs because you lose an opportunity within that match. Every other match, so I've done all the Players' Championships, all the World Series, all the European Tour, and the Masters, World Match Play, UK Open. They're all in my stats. So far, in my database for this year, I've had 251 unique players play a PDC game. So again, this is PDC. This is not Challenge Tour. This is not Dev Tour. This is strictly just PDC. And in that, so total games is 3,000, my apologies. I got the wrong one here. Is 4,092 games are logged into my database, and that translates to 38,929 legs of darts are in this database. So I've got lots. Now, a couple other things too that I take into account. There's a couple people that played one game. Doug Bohm, and Andres Borbely. So I kept their stats. I've got the stats. I tracked them. But when we get into the rankings and how I'm taking a look at 140s, like there's a couple of people with 100% doubles rate because they went 1 for 1 in a game they lost 6-1. I'm not going to rank that. So you have had to play at least more than 5 games to be ranked up against that. And then I'm taking a look strictly at tour card holders, non-tour card holders. So I'm going to do a whole bunch of videos based on this. I'm just going to go through the stats here, share some really wild stats. There's a couple things here that are crazy. And the point of this, though, is I'm going to have another video for who I think is going to lose their tour card this year, and how many card spots are going to be open. Take into account that the Challenge Tour, the Development Tour, have already got their card holders. There's a little bit of discrepancy in the Challenge Tour, whether Scott Williams gets his tour card through the year's total event to get in the 64, or he's already got the card because of the Challenge Tour. So if he doesn't make the top 64, he's got a card, which pushes Danny Von Tripp out. So there's kind of those considerations, but I'll put a video ranking that. I'm also going to do a video of, I'm going to give this new award, the Martin Lukeman / Andrew Gilding Award, which is, there's not a chance you think they'd keep their card, but they've done a great job and they've got their card for next year and pretty comfortably. And they pretty much got it comfortable next year going through. So who do I think are some of the people that got their tour card at the end of, or at the beginning of this year, who I think can pull a Lukeman or Gilding? It's interesting when you take a look at the stats. Gilding certainly, his stats are great. His stats were great last year, but just didn't translate that into wins. So I've got a couple of those players that I'll go through them that, stats are good, but maybe the draw is something. They're drawing tougher players, so it doesn't translate. And we got some people that I would say stats aren't there, but maybe they're just getting lucky on the draw. So again, I'm going to have a whole bunch of videos coming out of this, the best or top 10 disappointing players this year, top 10 players that have had the best years, your top 10 player years, and then go into some stats around who do I think is going to be Grand Slam of darts, Players Championship, and most importantly, who do I think is going to win the Worlds based on all the stats. But here's a couple interesting stats just to throw out right away. So your first stat, there's only one player so far that's thrown over 500 180s this year. Can you believe 500 180s? The year's not even over. I've gone like 2 years and thrown 3. Fair enough. But Michael Smith has 501 180s on the year. Again, doesn't include the World Cup, so he's probably got a little bit more because he did play in the World Cup. But just on his stats for the tournaments that I've looked at, 500. You've got over 1,100 140s, between 140 and 179. You've got that led by Peter Wright. And then the amount of 100 to 139s hit, Johnny Clayton leads that. So, really, just again, those are the names that you would expect to be up there. But we're also going to take a look at it, not just that total 180s hit, because you get benefit from playing in so many games. We're going to actually look at it for 180s per leg, 140s per leg. So we're going to normalize the data and go forward with that. So again, let's go through some of the stats. The first stat that we're going to go through is your win percentage. So win percentage this year, that means times that you won the game. Luke Humphries leads the way. Not surprising to anyone. Nathan Aspinall. The one that surprised me as being as high as MVG. So great year, MVG. He actually played in the Premier League, so he's played the best players more often. So the players in the Premier League kind of get a little bit of a negative towards the legs and the win percentage because they're not playing the best players. Or sorry, they're playing the best players once a week for 16 weeks. So they're going to lose some games there. Where, if you're playing just on the Pro Tour, like someone like Luke Humphries, and being a high seed, he's going to get, what turns out to be a non-32 player. You can still get a tough draw, but you're playing a non-top 32 player. And then you usually play your first 32 player in the third round. So you get, based on the seed, you should win 2. But people that play in the Premier League, so to see MVG up there like that is really, really neat. I think a great year for him. Danny Noppert, Damon Hedda, Dave Chisnell, Rob Cross, Dirk Van Dijvenbode, and Michael Smith, Adrian Lewis, and Andrew Gilding. And Lewis and Gilding were tied. So, Adrian Lewis kind of stands out. Michael Smith stands out as well because he did play in the Premier League. But then he had that one run where he couldn't lose. So, it makes sense that maybe he made the top 10. In terms of your legs percentage, so the amount of legs that you played, how many times did you win the leg? So not just you win the game, but you win the game by a considerable amount. Again, Humphries top of the charts. Chisnell, Hedda, MVG. Again, surprising to see him up there. Another name that pops up. Names are pretty similar, but you've got a couple. Price makes the list, and again, Price is one of those ones that he played in the Premier League. But when he loses a game, it's usually a pretty close game, and when he wins a game, he usually wins a game. Takes him to the woodshed. So, and then Dimitri Vandenberg was on that list as well. So. Here's what it is. The next thing I wanted to take a look at, for me, because I'm trying to win. So those are just your win percentage, your legs percentage. So I could do that, but let's go a little bit further in the stats. I broke it down to 180s per leg, 140s per leg, 100s per leg, meaning how many scores 140 and above per leg do you get? How many 100 above do you get? Take a look at the doubles percentage. Rank them. What's their doubles percentage? And then take a look at how does that correspond to winning in your ranking. And it was interesting. If you take a look at it strictly at 180s per leg, there's not really a lot of big correlation there. There's a lot of 180s hitters that hit 180s. An example might be Mike DeDecker, who's up on the list, but his win percentage doesn't reflect that. Dirk Van Dijvenbode is the best. His win percentage does reflect that, but he's the best 180s per leg hitter. But there was none of that correlation. And then if you go to 100s, and we'll go through this 100 score plus leg, not great correlation. Scott Mitchell's your best one. Think about Scott Mitchell. He's won less than 50% of his games this year. And Gary Anderson's won less than 50%. He's won less than 50% of his legs. It's not correlating. So what really kind of shined, and I'll go through it, 140 plus. So that means scores of 140 or plus, you start to see the correlation between 140 plus per leg or 140 and above 140. So that includes 140 is all the way up to 180 and across. Now, I think there's a couple players that probably missed out on this because And I've seen this during the European Tour, and what I really like to have, and Darts Connect, if you're listening, this would be fantastic, your 130 plus legs. Because that includes your two triples. That includes two big triples. So 131, still triple 20, 20, triple 17, or triple 20, miss the 19, hit the triple 18. You want to be able to include those stats in there if you can. Currently, it doesn't have those stats. So I got to go with 140s, but you start to see a correlation there, and we're going to go through that. One thing at first beginning, the average 180s per leg is 0.207. So your 180s per leg, the average of all PDC Tour card holders is 0.207. I took the non-tour holders out because there's a couple games people play 1-2 games. I included them back in though when I'm starting to look at the other stats, but 0.207. Now, there's only 12 players currently that have an average above 0.3. So that means they hit 3 180s in 10 legs. It's pretty impressive. But let's get to the 140s. 140s and above. So the average 140s and above is 0.819. So that means you hit less than 140 per leg. And right now, 6 players are averaging greater than 140 per leg. And topping that list is Peter Wright. So topping the 180 list is Dirk van Dijvenbode. Topping the 140 list is Peter Wright. Then you look at the hundreds. So the average 100 per leg is 2.02. So 2.02 scores of 100 per leg is the average. And currently there are 8 players that have more than 2.3 100 plus scores a leg. So that includes not just 100 to 140. That's 100 plus 140s plus 180s, anything over 100. So 2.3. And again, you've got 8 players in the leading list is Scott Mitchell. So there's where you go. We have Dirk van Dijvenbode, then we got Peter Wright, and that's Scott Mitchell. So 140 seems to be that list. And if we go through the 140 list, here's the list. So you tell me, okay, 140s plus: Peter Wright, Luke Humphries, Stephen Bunting, Michael Smith, Ross Smith, Jose De Souza, Johnny Clayton, Damon Hedda, Boris Kirschmar came out of nowhere on that one. Boris Kirschmar, nowhere on the 180 list. Andrew Gilding and Neil Zonneveld were tied. All of them had a really, really good year. 180s, you're starting to look at Dirk van Dijvenbode, Michael Smith, De Decker, Whitlock, Chisnell, Humphries, Schindler, Ross Smith, Hedda, De Souza. Right. So, okay, I'm taking a look at the 180s list. And then I get to the 100 list. Mitchell, Mickey Mansell, Boris Kirschmar, Peter Wright, Johnny Clayton, Jim Williams, Mario Vandenbergard, Van Barneveld, James Wade, Radek Zdansky, and Brandon Dolan. See where I'm going 140 plus versus the 100 plus. It's safe to state a 100 score used to be really, really good. If I had a 100 score in my league, I'm walking away and I'm loving life. But in the pros, 100 is not the score. You do 4 100s, you got 101 left. You got to take your darts out in 15 darts to be comfortable. There's gonna be times when these best players beat you in 12 legs. But giving some of these players like Michael Van Geur and Peter Wright Geur and Price 15 darts to break you, scoring 100 each time isn't going to get it done. So you look at the 140 leg, and that's where I'm personally using to say I'm looking at those best players. If you take a look at Wright, Humphries, Bunting. Bunting's had a good year. Michael Smith, Ross Smith. Ross Smith had the worst start to a year. So for him to come back on this list, and he has progressed. De Souza, Clayton, Hedda. I mean, there's some meat behind the bones. You don't see Price and you don't see Van Gerwen on this list. But we'll talk about that. They're just down. So what I wanted to do is also take a look at your doubles percentage. So who are the best doubles hitters in the league? So I thought I had it written down, but I didn't. So let me just do that right now. We'll take a look at this, and we'll go by double rank. And again, everything's in my nice little list here. That it's great what stats, Minitab, and Excel can do for you in databases. But here we go. The best hitters. So Luke Humphries, best doubles percentage. Johnny Clayton, 42.65. Damon Hedda, James Wade, Ryan Searle, Nathan Aspinall, Andrew Gilding, Dirk Van Dijvenbode. We're hearing the same names here. Gerwin Price is over 40. Peter Wright, rated 41. Matt Campbell, Ryan Joyce. You know, the one name you're consistently hearing here is Peter Wright. So just his stats are, and this is a guy who changes his darts every single week. So you tell me why he's it's crazy. It is insane the amount of variation he puts in his game, and yet he still is able to do, you know, crazy things on there. So, or crazy things in the tournaments. So the next that I'm going to share, which is really, you know, I really like doing this one, is to compare. So what I did to say, if I'm going to predict your behavior, I'm going to take your doubles ranking, add it to your 140s ranking, and add them together and do an overall ranking of the 140s across, and see who would have the best ranking when you compare the 140s and the doubles. So you add those two rankings, the lower the number, the better. Because if you're number one in doubles, you're number one in 140 pluses, that's going to give you a ranking or a score of 2. 1 + 1 = 2. And then do that ranking as well. So, you know, we're going to take a look at it here. But if we do, you're starting to look at some really, really, you know, interesting numbers here. So let me just set this up to do that. I thought I had already done it, but again, knowing me, I thought I was prepared. Not as prepared as I wanted to be. And I thought I had this one, but no worries. It'll just take a couple seconds here to be able to do that. And if we do the rankings for the doubles plus the 140s, okay, and we're going to take the top 10 here and be able to share that with you. Here we go. So your top 10 are, so you take a look at the rank. Luke Humphreys, number 1. Not surprising. Number 2 is Johnny Clayton. That's a name that's had a great year. He says an off year. Number 3, Damon Hedda. Great on both the PDC Tour, won his European Tour. 4, Peter Wright. 5, Michael Smith. 6, Andrew Gilding, who's had a great year. 7, Dirk Van Dijvenbode, again, won a tournament, has had a pretty consistent year. Nathan Aspinall came back from the injury, having a great year. 8th. 9th is Danny Noppert. Again, not surprised by these names. And 10, Josie D'Souza, maybe a little bit of a disappointing season, but that's your top 10. Does that surprise anyone? This is what I like about this now. I've got something that I can rate. If I rate the 140s against the doubles, I've got something here. I can predict what's going to happen. And then I'm also going to be trending it, just like, and I think there's a Dart Hockey that does it too, the last 200 legs and gives a score. I'm going to base it a little bit more on the scoring plus the doubles. Versus looking at, I believe it's win percentage per leg that Dart Hockey looks at. So I'm going to try to get that algorithm in place to be able to predict what's happening in the future. Okay, so a couple things in my model that I just wanted to go through as well. You know, it's interesting when I take a look at the difference from the money that they've won. So you should think if my model's good, then, you know, the number one money is Michael Van Gerwen, but he ends up being 20th on the total ranking. So relatively close. And I think if I put the 130s in there, Michael Van Gerwen would be a little bit higher because he does switch quite a bit. He goes to the triple 20 and then, you know, goes to the 19s, a lot of 137s, a lot of 136s, which would score for 100 plus in my ranking. But, you know, really there are 2 triple visits. So I'd like to see if I can get that done. And I'm sure if I did, Van Gerwen would be higher up on this list. But, you know, if I take a look at the difference between, you know, your money ranking or total ranked money in the year and your 140 plus doubles percentage, there are 4 people that line up directly on my model. They fit perfect. Adam Gowles, Adrian Lewis, Radek Zagansky, and Simon Whitlock. They line up perfect for the money that they've made, ranked money versus what their scores or what their 140 plus. So in the model, I've got a couple players that line up, you know, really good. There's a lot with really small differences, like between 10 plus. A lot of people fit in that model. But there's a couple of people that just stand out with, whoa. So the first one I'm going to take a look at is, you know, people that probably got the raw end of the deal when they're getting their stats. So when they draw in the tournament, they're drawing bad draws. That's the way I'm going to take it. The stats are good, but they don't have a lot of money. So, typically lower than 32 on the ranking, and they're getting the worst draws. So first of all, Scott Mitchell. Stats are insane, but not a lot of money this year. Richie Burnett, another one that stats aren't bad, but the money, it's a big difference. So I'm ranking the difference between their ranked money, what they ranked in the money, versus the 140 and doubles. So I'm taking all of this into account. Kevin Dietz is another one. His doubles is fantastic. So his scoring is not so good, but Kevin Dietz is another one. Raymond Van Barneveld shows up on this list. Compared to his stats, compared to his money ranked, there's a big difference. Brian Joyce, another one. Again, another good doubles hitter. Neil Zonneveld. We talked about the 140s. He was up on the 140s, but it's not translated into any money. And then Mickey Mansell is also on that list. Now, there's the other side of that list, which is you got the best draws. You break my model. And there's one person that stands out who breaks my model worse than anyone else. Matters Razma. It's insane. I don't understand how Matters Razma wins money. I just don't. So Matters Razma on the scoring 140 and plus. Now I get it, he's a 19 hitter, okay? But even his 100 pluses are just terrible. Maybe he's got a lot of 95s in the game. He does start on the 19s quite a bit. But if you take a look at Matters Razma, a ranking he's 191st on 140 plus. So he's only 128 pro players, so even the non-pro players score way better than him. If you take a look at his doubles percentage isn't horrible. His actual double percentage isn't that bad. He's 59th in doubles. So 59th in doubles. He is 191st in 140 plus hit, and he's 21st in ranked money this year. 21st on ranked money. Breaks my model. Just breaks it. Has it just done. So I don't know how to deal with Razma. Either Razma's getting the best draws I've ever seen. The other ones are Keegan Brown, but Razma's just ahead of everyone else. Keegan Brown, he did win a tournament, so that's probably affected that. Darius Labanauskas, Jeff Smith, Luke Woodhouse, Keen Berry, Ricky Evans. This is how bad the year has been for Glenn Durant. He still won a little bit of money, but his stats are worse than that. That's crazy to me. But they're on that list as well. So the other thing too, and I know I'm getting to the end of this video, so I'm going to break some of the other videos up so they're not as long, but I just wanted to go through the stats first, and then once you've gone through the stats, I can give you my top 10 players, overrated players, top 10 disappointing seasons, top 10 best seasons, and get ready for the end of the season. But there's a couple people that we're going to talk about. Work on your doubles. So what I wanted to look at now is the difference between your scoring and your doubles. And there's a huge difference between these. We're talking the ranking more than 100. So Devin Peterson, work on your doubles. Scoring's not bad. Doubles are killing him. Rusty Jake Rodriguez, another one. Scoring good, doubles bad. Steve West, Mike DeDecker, Richie Burnett, we talked about him with the other one. Ron Muhlenkamp. Simon Whitlock was surprising on here. Simon Whitlock's a really good scorer. Doubles are killing him. And then we got the other ones that hit doubles, but you got to work on the scoring piece. So if you go through that, well, who shows up on my list? Matters Razma. 192 to 59, that's a pretty big difference. Jeff Smith, Callan Ritz. Again, I've been talking about Callan Ritz, just so fast he throws. I think the quickness of his throw does affect his doubles. Krzysztof Kachuk. So scoring, just work on the scoring, I guess. David Evans, which we'll talk about. He hasn't won anything this year, so the fact that he's got a difference between that and his money, it's crazy to me. Matt Campbell. But if you take a look at Matt Campbell, he kind of stands out. 140, but he's got a huge bump up when he goes to 100 plus. So again, maybe one of those guys who scores a lot 130s, 133s. I do see he does switch. So again, he might be one of those ones like a Van Gerwen or Razma that the 130 plus might show it a little bit better. And then Andy Bolton and Keen Berry are the ones that you say you got the doubles. Just start working on the scoring, because the scoring ain't hitting it. anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Again, I just wanted to give like an overview of what I've been doing. Again, I'm going to be using this as a predicting tool. I'm going to run a different algorithm than Dardocky does, but I'm really going to focus in on the 140 doubles and, you know, how you've done in the last, you know, little bit in terms of legs. And just showing you there are a couple people that break my model, a couple people ran on my model, but for the most part, you've seen when I've done the 140 doubles versus money. You're seeing the players that rank there. They shouldn't be surprising. They're the best players that have played, you know, terms this year, although MVG and Price aren't on the list, but they're just off the list. So hope you enjoy it. I'll come back and do some other videos on darts. Cheers.